From Fox 8 Sports, this is the Overtime Podcast.
From the Fox 8 studios in New Orleans, this is the Fox 8 Overtime Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Fazende, riding shotgun as he does each and every podcast. It's Andre Johnson.
Junior.
Do not forget the Junior. It's very important to remember the JR. Before we get into today's content, be sure to like, share, rate, and review. If you are watching us on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Get the bell notification for when we drop that fire content. And today, it is Friday, day after Thanksgiving. I am feeling well stuffed and well fed. Ate a lot. Hope everyone enjoyed their Thanksgiving. I surely did. We had a nice long day of hosting. Family started coming in about 11 o'clock yesterday morning and rolled right into the night. It was we had a lot of people that brought a lot of good food. We had a fantastic time with family. So we enjoyed our holiday, and I woke up. By the time I went to bed last night, I was nice and tired because I had ate so much and it had been such a long day. I slept well, woke up, got up today on this Black Friday, depending on when you're watching this, the day after Thanksgiving, which is always a fun day because big high school football night, but usually the weather's shifting a little bit, and we felt that today, but also start of Christmas season. So the first thing I did when I got up this morning, went up in the attic, brought all the Christmas decorations down for the family to get to work on that. So we have a fun stretch ahead. Also, I was out at Saints camp today for some significant updates and news on the game ahead Sunday against the Rams. Before we get into that, how was your holiday?
It was good. You know, like you, spent all day eating. I definitely went to sleep really full yesterday when it came to the food, the turkey, the mac and cheese, and everything like that. Now, we didn't even wait until the morning for Christmas. As soon as I finished my dinner plate, my in-laws pointed to a box and said, yeah, that Christmas tree in there,
Yeah.
we got to get it up.
Okay.
So you put the Christmas tree up literally right after Thanksgiving dinner. That was my post-food workout, so to speak.
Okay.
So, yeah, we got the Christmas tree up. The decorations are on it and everything. And, it's our officially Christmas season in the Johnson and Jackson households.
Johnson and Jackson household, I love it. I gotta say, just a little more Thanksgiving commentary. We've hosted before, and we've had roughly the same amount of people at my house before, but for whatever reason, everyone decided to bring way more food this year. It was the most food I ever had in my house for Thanksgiving ever. We had every kind of side, the stuffing, there's corn grits, fantastic. We had this potato casserole. It really was a very good day.
Did you get to keep
food.
the leftovers?
I did. I had some today before I got in, so I enjoyed the honey baked ham and the corn grits and the baked macaroni. It was fantastic. I am not apologizing for it. So I'm well fed, stuffed. Took me a little while to get going, but we are here, and it's a very important day. Not just the day after a holiday, but the Saints play in a couple of days. A very, very important game. They haven't played in a couple of weeks because they're coming off that bye. They reshifted the schedule around, so they were off on Thursday and then practiced their final practice today. And usually on Friday, not usually, every Friday before a Sunday game, you get what? You get the injury report. So we're going to go there with the big picture because there's one name that stands out, and that's just how we're going to do this today. That's where we're going to go. So Andre Johnson Jr., please do the honors and read off the injury report today.
One player will be out on Sunday against the Rams. That is Lucas Patrick. Questionable for that game will be Jamal Williams, Tano Passigno, and the big name on the list, center Erik McCoy, who has not practiced all week. We saw him leave towards the end of that Cleveland Browns game. He is questionable against the Rams. And Sean, we've seen Erik McCoy miss about 8 games this season. If he's in a situation Sunday where he can't go, do the Saints have a chance against Los Angeles?
All right. Yes, but we're gonna get into why. We're gonna detail why he is so important, and the numbers back it up. And it's very easy to look at when he does play versus when he did not play, did play, did not play, and see the variance there. I'm gonna go through each one, but it should also be noted, and this is not just coach speak. He is a game time decision. Rizzy told us he is doing a workout tomorrow and a workout before the game. I saw him in the locker room. When I was walking from the press room to the locker room, he was out on the field. He was just finished up something, working with looked like some kind of medical staff personnel. So they were doing something. They are trying to get him to go. They understand how important he is. They understand how much this offense, how much he bolsters this offense when he is in the lineup, and the numbers back it up. So there's still a very good chance he plays. There's also a very good chance that he does not. They have to prepare for both options. And as you said, he did not practice all week. Rizzi even said he's one of the exceptions. I feel okay if he doesn't practice throughout the week to play on Sunday. And I agree. I think he's moved from like top 7 player on your roster to maybe top 3 or top 4. Erik McCoy I'm talking about. But look, the numbers certainly bear it out. Let's just go with the 3 games that he played this season, start to finish. Well, not exactly full finish. I'm gonna include the Cleveland game in here, but he left, was it fourth quarter, because he left and came back, but he played the majority of the game. Let's just put it that way. Week 1 against Carolina. 2 stats really jump out with him versus without him. Rushing yards and points. Against Carolina, they ran for 180. They scored 47. Against Dallas, they rushed for 190. They scored 44. Against Cleveland, season high rush for 214. And scored 35. Now, weeks 3 through 10 without him. This is a lot of numbers, so just bear with me. Week 3, Philadelphia, where he played 3 snaps, 89 yards, 12 points. Week 4, Atlanta, 131 yards, 24 points. Probably should have won that game.
Yep.
Week 5, Kansas City, 46 yards, 13 points.
Not good.
Week 6, Tampa Bay, 81 yards, 27 points, but remember that was a punt return and an interception return in that game. So 27 might be a little misleading, but nonetheless, it counts. Week 7, Denver. I didn't realize they rushed for 97 yards in that game, but they did. Not terrible, but they did. 10 points scored. This is the one that really caught me because it just didn't feel like this. Week 8 against the Chargers, 117 rushing yards, 8 points scored. Week 9, this is the one. My goodness, this is the one. Carolina, 197 rushing yards, 22 points, and we know they lost, and we know the changes that followed after that. And then in Week 10, Atlanta, 96 yards, 20 points. So we're going to average it out. With McCoy, 194 rushing yards a game, 42 points per game, and of course, 3-0 when he plays the majority of the game. Yep. Without McCoy, 106 rushing yards a game, 17 points, and the big one, 1-7 without him. So, can they win without McCoy? They have done it. They did it once. Probably should have did it 3 times, but they did it once. They lost 7 times without him. But yes, they can. But it'd be a whole lot cooler if they didn't have to, because honestly, he's a difference maker. Now, the lone win in that was that Atlanta game, Week 10. Carr was back, his second game back. Lemieux was the center. Lemieux will probably be the center this game if McCoy can't go. The other game, one of the games they should have won, the previous game against Atlanta, was Lemieux. They rushed for 131, scored 24. Should have won that game. So Lemieux was the center for the win, and he was the center for one of the games they should have won when McCoy was out. And remember, Lemieux was out for a while, too.
Yeah.
That rough stretch was McGovern, it was Lucas Patrick, it was all kind of players at that center position. So, Lemieux started against Atlanta, got the win, and then he started at Atlanta way back, felt like forever ago. Week 4 probably should have got the win. So, if you can't have McCoy, certainly feels like you got your next best option in Shane Lemieux. But I'm just here to tell you, at this stage of the season, you want as much or as many healthy bodies as possible. You want as many difference makers as possible because you've got no room for error. Just hope and pray Erik McCoy can go because I don't want to leave that up to chance.
Absolutely. I mean, you named a lot of the numbers with McCoy and without McCoy. And then when you look on the other side of the ball this week for the Rams, an important number, maybe the most important number when it comes to the Rams, 41.2. That is the Rams' pressure rate this season, which is the amount of time, the percentage of times on dropbacks where at least one player will either hurry, hit, or sack the quarterback. 41.2% for the Rams, that's the highest in the NFL, which means when it comes to consistently pressuring the quarterback,
they get after it.
No team in the league has done so better than the Los Angeles Rams. You do not want to go into a game against the front four like that, without your big dog in Erik McCoy, because it's proven what Erik McCoy does for not just the center position, but all the positions around him. For what he does for a younger Trevor Penning, for what he does for Taliesin Fuaga, having Cesar Ruiz next to him, having whoever you're going to put at, because Lucas Patrick's out, so whoever you're going to put
Nick
at that
Saldiveri, most
left
likely.
guard spot, Nick Saldiveri, another young player next to him. You're going to have 3 players on that offensive line who are in their 3rd year or younger coming into this game against one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. You want the glue guy in the middle of that. You want Erik McCoy. And not only for them, but also for Derek Carr. He sounded so relieved when we talked to him the other Wednesday when Erik McCoy came back, and he gushed for at least 2 or 3 minutes just on all of the ways that Erik McCoy helps him as a quarterback. And Derek Carr's no rookie. He's seen a lot of defenses and he knows how to dissect a lot of defenses, but having an elite center who can also make calls, who can also make shifts and make changes based off of the things that Carr may not see and may not call out, it helps. And it shows in the fact that, like you said, they average 42 points in the 3 games that Erik McCoy has played the majority of the game for. 17 points when he doesn't play. That's a huge difference, and that's a huge player in the middle of your offensive line. Like you said, if you're talking about the most valuable players on this team, AK, Taysom, Derek Carr, Erik McCoy, it's those 4. And if you have all 4 of those guys on the field, you've got a good chance to win any game. If you're missing one, especially Erik McCoy, you may have some problems on Sunday.
Real quick, if you can get to Google real quick.
Right.
Let's not just do the points scored. Let's do average margin of victory. I know it was 21 points against Cleveland. The week 1 average margin, I think it was 37 they won by. I think it was 47
to 10. I remember that.
Okay. And then what did they win? How bad did they beat Dallas?
It was 44 to, was it 19? Let's see. Get this Saints schedule going. I believe it was 44 to 19 or something
Let's
like
see.
that.
I think it was a huge margin of victory.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just like they were winning. They were winning big. And why were they winning big? Because they were able to...
Yep,
yes, 44 to 19.
19.
All right, so that's 25 points. So you're talking about... that. I'll just do the math in my head here. That's what... let's see, carry the 2, the 3. Let's see. Let's see. We got, what is that? An average margin of victory of, call it, that's close to 30 points.
Yeah.
So that is huge in the NFL. So why did that happen? Well, it's because the ideal formula for success with this offense is running the ball, calculated deep shots. Running the ball in this offense, maintaining the line of scrimmage in this offense usually leads to more points. And when you have Erik McCoy, you're running the football better. No secret that the 3 highest point totals this season have all been with Erik McCoy. The highest point total you got without him was 27, and they're still kicking themselves over the Carolina loss. I realize that because they had 197 and only scored 22. That's just an awful. That's the outlier when they rush for a lot of yards. So why is he important? Well, it's not just because he's good. We know he's good, but it's also they are who they truly want to be when Erik McCoy is in the lineup. That is, run the football, that exotic wide zone scheme that they like to run, that play action bootleg stuff they like to run. I mean, no secret that a lot of the big plays have come when Erik McCoy has been back in the lineup. So this would be a huge loss, and they know it. If this were not if this warrants such a big potential absence, you wouldn't see him working so hard right now to get him. They would say, you know what, let's just take one more game off. He'll be back next week, no problem. They understand the urgency is high. The 1-0 thing is really high. It's almost like they've adopted a playoff mentality right now, whereas if we don't have our best version of ourselves, our season's over type situation, which honestly, I'm not mad at that. I don't mind that approach going forward.
Especially because you're losing so many people already. I mean, you're still without Chris Olave. You're still without Rashid Shaheed. Marshawn Lattimore got traded. You're still without Paulson Adebo. That's your number 1 and number 2 receivers and your number 1 and number 2 cornerbacks at the start of the season.
Yeah.
All of those guys are still out. Jamal Williams has been out. Kendre Miller's been out. So Alvin Kamara has been shouldering a lot when it comes to the running back position. Now, Jamal did practice today, and he is projected to play, or he's questionable, could possibly play on Sunday. But, yeah, I mean, you need as many healthy guys on that field as possible because the last couple of podcasts, we've been looking at the Saints' schedule kind of long-term and looking at what they've got ahead of them. They've got 4 playoff contenders in these last 6 games. And to realistically make the playoffs, you either have to win out or you can only lose 1-2 games max. That's why every game is like a playoff game for them right now, because it essentially is if they want to get into the playoffs. And if you want to get into the playoffs, you're going to need Erik McCoy in that lineup against a pass rush like the Rams.
And look, this is that surprised me when you read that stat about their pass rush, because this is without Aaron Donald.
Yeah,
it's without Aaron Donald. And they were asked a lot about, that front without Aaron Donald, and they were all pretty complimentary of that front even without Aaron Donald.
Got some young players on that front too.
They do, and they all complimented the Rams drafting, which I remember there was a pocket of time, a stretch of time with the Rams where they didn't care anything about the draft picks. Well, clearly they've come back around to drafting players. So it's not just not having McCoy; it's going up against a team that obviously can get after the passer. Now, I will also say this. They seem to be pretty vulnerable against the run, which is something I know the Saints feel like if McCoy is back and you see the rushing totals with him versus without him, not only is he back and gives them the best chance to win, it gives them the best chance to, like I said before, be themselves, and they can really run the football, and really the whole formula for success becomes that much clearer when you're trying to game plan for situations like that. Because that's what they do. They generally go through paths to victory when they're game planning these types of situations. Keys to victory. It sounds pretty generic, but it's obviously something every team does, and I know it's something the Saints place a big emphasis on. So they want to run the football, and they know their best path to running the football is obviously having Erik McCoy.
And you don't want to be behind early. This is a very dynamic Rams offense. You've got two, possibly the best receiver tandem in the entire NFL. When you look at Cooper Kupp and when you look at Puka Nacua, you've got one of the better running backs, young running backs in the league, and Kyron Williams, Matthew Stafford, a Super Bowl winning quarterback.
Play keep away.
If this gets ugly, the Saints are not built to come back into a game like that.
That's a problem too.
Exactly. If the Saints go down, and this is something we talked about early in the season when they were on the 3-game losing streak, 4-game losing streak. We talked about the Saints are getting behind early, and they're not able to climb out of those holes like they did against Atlanta, like they did against Kansas City, like they did in some of the games that Rattler played. This offense isn't necessarily built to do that. This offense is built to run the ball, to control the clock, to keep the ball out of the hands of Stafford and those weapons. And if you're going to get those big plays, you get it because you set them up based off of running the ball with Alvin Kamara, running the ball with Taysom Hill, Jamal Williams, if he plays this week. And all of that becomes a lot easier with Erik McCoy. So can they win? Yes. Shane Lemieux, like you mentioned in the 2 games against Atlanta, he has played well. But it becomes a whole lot easier if you got the big guy.
Be a lot cooler if they didn't have to.
Exactly.
That was a half Matthew McConaughey thing. Be a lot cooler if you did. Okay, so by the way, it's 27.6. That bothered me the whole time. The average margin of victory with Erik McCoy, and it's an 88 point or yard swing with him running the football versus without him on average. 88 yards per game. That's what McCoy has been worth. And look, the 25 points per game thing obviously goes hand in hand. I'm not going to say Erik McCoy is worth 25 points in a game, but you get where I'm going here. Yeah. It's very important to have Erik McCoy in the lineup going forward this week. Other things from this matchup that I'm watching closely is has to be the Saints secondary versus those wide receivers. It has to be. That was just such a butt whipping last year by specifically those 2 receivers against the Saints secondary. The Saints secondary was the strength of their roster last year. Obviously, you don't have Latimer, who, by the way, coincidentally is doubtful again, so the hamstring was real. And then you get Kool-Aid, Alante,
Ugo
Amadi. So you're talking about a situation where, they could be vulnerable, and they've been a little bit vulnerable to big plays. So that, to me, is the key. Yes, you can keep them off the field by running the football, controlling the clock, controlling the line. But when they do get on the field, they've got that quick strike ability. So that is a concern. That is a key matchup going into this game.
And what I'm looking at the defense, but I'm looking at the defensive line because I'm going to be honest with you. I think the Saints corners are facing a very uphill battle trying to guard Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, because when it comes to pure route running, there may not be one better in the league than Cooper Kupp. Yeah. And Puka Nacua is not far behind him. I want the defensive line to be able to get a pass rush. If you can pressure Matt Stafford, one thing we know about Matt Stafford, he is one of the very few quarterbacks in the league who is not going anywhere. He is tethered to that pocket. Matt Stafford isn't running any quarterback powers, no QB draws. He's not running around back there. You know where he's going to be. You leave those receivers enough time, they will get open against really anybody in the league, but especially the cornerbacks that the Saints are left with right now. You've got to pressure Matthew Stafford. You've got to make it hard for him to get the ball to Cooper Kupp, hard for him to get the ball to Puka Nacua. So I'm looking at the Chase Youngs. I'm looking at especially Chase Young. I'm looking at Carl Granderson on the other side. Brian Brzee in the middle.
Who leads the team in sacks. Did you realize that?
Yeah.
He leads the team in sacks. I did not realize that, but yes.
Finally took it from Alontae Taylor.
Yeah.
After those first couple games. Yeah. But and even Tano Passanio, who hasn't played all season, he's practiced all week. Maybe Tano Passanio can step in and, have an impact as well. So I'm really looking at that pass rush right now.
Tell you what, if Tano can be ready to go, he'd be a nice depth piece because I haven't seen anything from Isaiah Foskey. There's only so many snaps to go around, but Isaiah Foskey has become just kind of the absent guy. But it's also important in this regard because everyone, look, I've already told you they're taking it as a playoff mentality. They're taking it to go 1-0, and that has been hammered home all week. 1-0, 1-0, 1-0, 1-0. They have every player we've talked to has said that. It is clearly the message. I like the fact that the coach has said it. He's made it a point, and all the players are buying in and relaying that message. I really do like that because it shows that he is still connecting, and I think it is the right approach. If they were able to get this win and get to 5-7, there are some other notable games we have to pay attention to. Yep. The biggest being Atlanta. They have the Chargers at home at noon. Now, on the surface, that looks like a vulnerable game for the Falcons, and I agree. It is. The Chargers are absolutely capable of going to Atlanta and winning. However, Jim Harbaugh is coming off of a very emotional game. He lost to his brother in a game that kind of slipped away where he had the lead early, I should say, and the Ravens kind of did what the Ravens do. The Chargers made a comeback late, but it just didn't happen. And it's a short week, and they have to travel to an early kickoff. I'm telling y'all, they call it the Monday Night Hangover for a reason. So that is something to watch. That is not a guarantee the Chargers win that game. Tampa Bay at Carolina. What do we think about that game? Because that's one of your teams, Carolina, and they're playing a little bit better right now. And it's one of those, you don't normally get moral victories in the NFL, but playing the Chiefs the way they did, I think Carolina's using that as a moral victory.
One thing about that game, the Carolina Panthers are playing probably the best football that they've played since they drafted Bryce Young.
No doubt.
In Tampa Bay, this isn't a gimme for Tampa Bay because I remember earlier in the season, Tampa Bay was rolling. Baker Mayfield was one of the early MVP candidates, and they ran up against the Broncos team, which at the time wasn't really hitting on anything. Mm-hmm. And the Broncos blew the Bucs out of the water.
They did.
Now, the Broncos got a lot better as the season went on, but that was a big upset. That was a game that you would have thought the Bucs could take, and I think this is a similar game. Bryce Young, for everything bad that you can say about him, and there's a lot of bad things you can say about the way Bryce Young has played so far in his career, he just went blow for blow with Patrick Mahomes.
He did.
And Chuba Hubbard might be the most underrated running back in the NFL right now. Game in, game out, Chuba Hubbard consistently gives the Panthers elite rushing production. He's one of the top rushers in the NFL right now, and this is playing for a team that's typically losing games. When you're behind in the game, you're not necessarily dedicated to running the ball, but despite that, Chuba Hubbard has always made sure that the Panthers had a good running game. They just got Jonathan Brooks back, the rookie that they drafted in the second round this past draft in April. The Panthers, I'm not going to go far, say that they're a dangerous team, but I'm going to say this is not a gimme for the Bucs. A Bucs team, by the way, which probably has the easiest schedule.
No doubt.
For the rest of the season in the NFC South.
There's a couple other games. We didn't go through this in the when we did our revisited the Saints playoff chances a couple pods ago. We didn't look at the opportunity of the 7 seed. Washington is 7-5. They're not playing great football right now. They played Tennessee, who did they just have a big win? Tennessee.
They beat Houston.
Who's starting to come down to earth a little bit with C.J. Stroud, as is Jaden. They got to go to Houston, early kickoff. That's an interesting game to watch because if they slip to 7-6 and the Saints are somehow able to get a win here and a win against the Giants, you play Washington. So could you backdoor your way into a 7 seed? I don't think that's completely off the table. The 8 seed is Arizona. They are at Minnesota. They play at noon. And then San Francisco is the 11 seed, so they're still in the mix. They're at Buffalo Sunday. That should be a good game. At Buffalo Sunday night on Sunday Night Football. So I think you're looking at this is when it gets fun. This is when it gets interesting, and this is when we kind of look at the big picture, but we call it the big picture on our podcast. Rizzy has specifically used the words, do not look at the big picture to his team and to his players. We can do that. They're not, and honestly, it's the right approach. But look, you get a win, everything looks somewhat manageable. But if you lose, it's almost like you can kiss it all goodbye.
Especially when you look at the playoff picture, when you look at the seedings, the Saints still on their schedule have the 10th seed, the Los Angeles Rams. They will play the 9th seed, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They will play the 7th seed, the Washington Commanders. And they will play the 6th seed, the Green Bay Packers. That's 4 teams that's in the wild card chase. You play them all. You want to get into that wild card picture? Yeah. You beating those teams will go a long way, not just in record, but in tiebreakers. Because we looked at the NFC South. They don't have many potential tiebreakers in the NFC South. But if you get a win over the Rams, you get a win over the Commanders, you get a win over the Packers. If y'all are tied at the end of the season, then you're over them. So the Saints, for a while, I didn't think that they would be pushing for the wild card because they had so many good teams, especially in that NFC North. But right now, they do kind of control their own destiny when it comes to that wild card.
That's interesting. God, how would you even think of that just a couple of weeks ago? I mean, because we've all been saying it's NFC South or nothing, but they may have an outside shot at getting there. We got about a minute left here. How are we feeling? I think this is going to be a physical game, a tough game. But I like the Saints coming off the bye. I really do. Being back at home, I like the Saints to win on Sunday.
I leaned Rams because I'm picturing a shootout, and I don't think the Saints are built right now to win a shootout against an offense like the Rams. But I challenge the defense because if this is a game you're going to win, it's going to be because your defense stepped up and shut down Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, and Kyron Williams and all those weapons over there. If the defense can show up similar to how they did against Cleveland, I think you may have a good shot of pulling off the upset.
And look, I said if they lose, it's probably over. The truth is it's not, but you'd probably have to run the table at that point after if you were to lose that game. All right, we got to get out of here. Just a few seconds left for Andre Johnson Jr. I am Sean Fazende. Glad y'all had a good Thanksgiving. We will catch you guys next time on Overtime.